Hey friends, it's Shannon Dusky, and this is Unwind Your Life, a podcast where I unwind the deeper meaning behind life's ordinary events to inspire us all to live with more peace, joy, and intention every single day. I'm so happy you're here. Hello friends. So today we're going to talk about butterflies and caterpillars too. This is something that it kind of continues to come up, but it kind of like the whole thought and the contemplation of this topic really started for me with an image that is in the book called When Everyone Leads. It's by Ed O'Malley and Julia Fabris McBride, who were both head of the Kansas Leadership Center for quite a while. And it's this image of a caterpillar looking at a butterfly, and both of them, they're holding hands, and you can just see a tear dropping from both the caterpillar and the butterfly. And when I was in a workshop, I looked at that, and my friend next to me said, "Oh my gosh, if this does not just completely capture motherhood," which is so true. And the part of the book that this image was illustrating was this concept of the change, the loss that happens when change occurs. And because with change and with growth and with forward movement, there's always a loss. And in the KLC framework, the leadership framework, there's a lot of talk, or there's like this concept that is like we must acknowledge the loss that we have when change occurs. And speaking to that is going to help energize everybody around that, because people feel more seen and heard when the loss that we are experiencing is acknowledged and maybe thought through and discussed. And so that was what it was illustrating in the context of that book. But it's an image that I continue to come back to, and I actually used it in one of my coaching sessions this past week, because again, like it brings up all of this emotion. And I found myself a couple of months ago, so every first Sunday, our church does adoration. And it was the first Sunday in January. And I sat in the balcony for adoration and did some meditation. And I kept thinking about the caterpillar and the butterfly. And here's what really was going through my mind was like, can you freaking imagine? Okay, you're a caterpillar, okay? You're a caterpillar. And you're just like inching along on the ground. And you don't really know what's a whole bunch above the ground, because the only thing you can really see is like the piece of grass in front of you, or the freaking car tire that's about to splat you, because sometimes in this part of Kansas, like when the caterpillars are out, man, like they're all over the road. It's crazy. And I try not to hit them, but you know what it is. I'm not going to swerve to not hit a caterpillar. But like, you just imagine, like you go really slow, you're a caterpillar, like put yourself inside of a little caterpillar and you're just inching along. Maybe you're crawling up a flower. Like, this is the view that you have of the world, okay? And then all of a sudden, this like change starts to happen. And so you're like, like I'm building a cocoon around myself. And like you cocoon for like 2 weeks, I think. And I was contemplating and wondering, as I'm sitting up in the balcony of the church during adoration, I'm like wondering, I'm like, is it painful? Like, is the metamorphosis to become a butterfly painful? Does the caterpillar even know what's going on? Or is it just this like transformation that's taking place and like it doesn't really know what's happening, which sometimes is what happens with us, right? Like, we crave change, we want change, and there's a lot of messy middle happening, and sometimes it feels like we don't know what's going on, and sometimes it's painful, and it can feel very alone, just like this little caterpillar in its little cocoon going through this metamorphosis. And so then, guys, I had to go home and I'm looking up like what actually happens inside of the cocoon. And they had images and they had like scans of what's going on. But from what I read, we don't really know, right? Because any interruption to the cocoon and the process that's happening within the cocoon is going to kill the thing that's inside the cocoon. And therefore, maybe we can't study it fully. Study it fully. And so then we're going back and we're putting you're a caterpillar again, okay? You inch your way out of the cocoon and all of a sudden you're fucking flying. Like, can you imagine that? Like, you don't even know this life of this world exists. And because the last time you like were conscious of anything, you're like inching your way along the grass and the dirt, and all of a sudden you come out of this thing and you're freaking flying above the flowers, above the streets. You're looking at God's beautiful earth and you're like, holy shit, I didn't even know I was capable of this. Holy crap, like, what is this life right now? I'm a butterfly. Like, you know, and this metaphor can go back and come back to us so often when we go through this change, or maybe it's when we finally surrender and like live our most true lives, where you have the energy and you feel like the butterfly, where you're like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't even see this life before because I was down in the caterpillar life. And now, after this messy middle, this transformation, this maybe it's painful sort of thing that, like, maybe even parts of that are hard to go back and, like, even recall, because it was such this transformation. And now, like, you're out and you're a butterfly again. Like, and you're kind of, like, free. You're, like, we're all free, and this butterfly is free. And so, like, I think about this, and then, you know, the cycle kind of continues, which, side note, I feel like I need to look up, like, what the next step is. I would assume, like, the butterfly reproduces at some point and comes back to being a caterpillar, right? Like, this is, like, the evolution of life. Like, there's no real end goal. It's just, like, caterpillar to butterfly, caterpillar, like, all that cycle of these things that we go through, these changes that we go through. And without the caterpillar, you can't have the butterfly. Like, if there is no caterpillar first, if there's no metamorphosis and change that takes place, the butterfly also does not exist. Another thing that is wrapping, like, kind of tying back to this is I'm currently reading Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown and, like, completely geeking out over it. Like, so much of my work comes down to helping people name how they're truly feeling, like what they're truly feeling about certain situations or about how they're showing up. And Brene Brown very much says, like, our experience is only limited to the language that we have for it. And so this book is all about, like, naming emotions so that we're able to more identify where we are with things. And the emotion that I just read about was bittersweet, right? Where she explains it, and I think all parents have kind of gone through this, where it's bittersweet that your kids are growing up, but also, like, you're kind of sad at the same time that they're growing up. Like, you know, I'm so happy that Nora Lee is, like, growing up and doing more toddler type things, but I also kind of miss, like, holding her in the baby zone or in the baby phase, baby zone, what is that? In the baby phase. And, as your kids grow older, you think about that, where it's I know this has to happen, and you're so beautiful how you are now, and I also miss this other piece of that. And, I think that bittersweet names that image of the butterfly so well, where it is this beautiful, amazing, inevitable change, and you're excited for it and you can't wait for it, and it's you're excited for the flourishing that happens with it, and there is also a loss of the prior state that comes with it, but it's something that's inevitable and that we have to accept. And that, I guess, I feel life is easier when we do accept that, because rather than hanging on to what was or just striving for what can be, it allows us to hold both emotions there and be where we are and be present in it. And so, I don't know how I want to leave this, but I would just be interested, if you're listening here and you can see a part of this that relates back to your own life, I would love to hear about it. I know that this was a very, very powerful exercise in the session with my client, and it kind of led us down some different roads to kind of just fully process through. And I don't know. So that's where I'm going to leave it. So the butterfly and the caterpillar, both beautiful, both amazing, bittersweet. Ask yourself maybe how is this showing up for me right now? Where in my life am I feeling like a caterpillar? Is there a messy middle happening? Am I in metamorphasis? What stage of this life cycle am I in? And maybe consider that in one area, you're in one phase of the cycle, and in another area, you're in another phase of the cycle. But it kind of helps name these things and give us hope that whatever cycle we're in, whatever season we're in, whatever stage of the life that we are in, it's not going to last forever. And there's something so beautiful and so amazing on the other side, and just keep going. Love you guys.
Hey, thanks for unwinding with me. If you found value in this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or subscribe. To connect with me about one-on-one coaching, group coaching, or other ways we can work together, head over to unwindcoaching.com. I love you, and I'm so glad you're here.